Hello and welcome back to A View from the Bullens live here at the studio around the corner from Bramley-Moore Dock. If you're first joining us here, obviously we've just set up this YouTube channel, going live, doing bits and bobs. So if you could like and subscribe to the channel, I know it's painful, I know it's hard at the moment, but it would mean the absolute world to us here, A View from the Bullens. If you could give us that support on a like and subscribe. I'm joined by the Bobble and Paul Draper for this one to talk about everything Everton, Sean Dyche, Aston Villa, Southampton, and all things in between. As I said, it's been a very, very, very tough start to the season for Everton, for Sean Dyche, the players, and most importantly, it's been a tough start for us, the fans. Bobble, bit of a breakdown. We got a bit heated over on the Patreon channel, didn't we? You and I, about the manager situation.
Yeah.
You know, try and dissect it all. We're going to have a good chat. It's all about opinions. It's all about people having their say in the comments on social media. It's getting a bit frosty, to say the least, amongst Evertonians. But, you know, what's the state of play as we currently are?
Yeah, it's getting a bit tense, isn't it? And it's okay to get a bit tense. We're 4 straight losses in the league, 13 goals conceded. You know, the structure of the team, which we spoke about on the post-match podcast after Aston Villa, the structure of the team is as bad as it has probably ever been under Sean Dyche. I think at the moment it's that bad. You know, you don't concede 13 goals in 4 games without the structure being all over the place. That's just a fact. Is it as simple as Jarrad Branthwaite comes back into the team and all is well? I think it's more than that. And I actually think that's unfair on Jarrad Branthwaite to put that amount of pressure on him or to suggest all will be well once he arrives back into the team. And I just don't think that's fair, because I think it's a bit deeper than that. I think we do have some problems. And I think the majority of the problems are centrally. The central midfield pairing of Timo Roabuna and Idrissa Gana Gueye, it's not working. The balance is wrong. Neither are a holding midfielder. Neither want to play the holding midfield role. If I'm honest, neither are particularly fantastic on the ball. Neither want to collect the ball off the back four. Neither want to screen the back four and protect when we are without the ball. And that's why we saw Aston Villa ripping through us, and why Youri Tielemans had 36 entries into our box, which is just it's criminal. That is criminal. You're allowing a Belgian international to have 36 entries into your box. Now that doesn't suggest that Roabuna and Idrissa Gana Gueye are bad players. What it's telling you is the structure of the team is simply not there, and it's not right. Because, not being funny, you could put Mangala, James Garner, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Timo Roabuna. You could even put Abdoulaye Doucouré in front of the back four, and I bet you them 36 entries dramatically fall. It'll probably be 18 entries rather than 36. You just need a screen sometimes. And I think that is a huge worry that Sean Dyche hasn't managed to adapt during games and using game management to change that. Because even when Everton went 2-0 up at Villa Park, the warning signs were there. I mean, Everton were very, very fortunate to go 2-0 up. Yeah, we were very fortunate to go 2-0 up. Now, don't get me wrong, we took our chances. It was smash and grab. And again, I've got no issue with that. When you're on the road, I think that's absolutely fine to do that. But also, you've then got to control the tempo of the game a little bit and take the sting out of it. And you do that by having a well-drilled structure where everyone knows their positions, everyone knows their role, and you protect your centre-halves, you protect your full-backs as much as possible. Now, again, we're going to probably come into it. James Tarkowski hasn't started the season particularly well. Michael Keane is constantly under scrutiny. The full-backs of, I think, Ashley Young, Seamus Coleman and Vitaly Mykolenko at left-back respectively, I think they started the season all very poorly as well in reality. But nevertheless, if I'm one of the defenders, I am looking at my midfielders, especially, again, centrally, and I'm thinking to myself, we were having odd man rushes against us at Villa Park where we were 2-0 up. It was 5 against 4 in Aston Villa's favour. We're 2-0 up away from home. Why is it 5v4? Why is Morgan Rogers finding pockets in between the centre-half and the midfield two, being able to turn and drive at us? Don't get me wrong, it will happen the odd time during a game. This was 30 minutes into the game. Tielemans had 36 entries. John McGinn was dropping into the central area and had all the time in the world. And I think that's where the issue is right now. Yes, we can look at the defensive issues in terms of Michael Keane, Tarkowski started poorly. We clearly have fullback issues. We know of those problems. I don't think Jordan Pickford started particularly well. I think he can be better. But I think why we are leaking so many goals, it's not because James Tarkowski is a bad centre-half. It's not even because Michael Keane is a terrible centre-half. Yes, he could have done better for the Ollie Watkins goal, the first goal. Get your body in there, make it difficult for him, win your flick it out for a corner. You do what you got to do. But you watch the attacks, you watch the build-ups when we play the opposition. They are ripping through us. And I mean, they are ripping through us far too easily. Now, with all due respect to Aston Villa, they're not Manchester City. They're a very good team, and they've got a very deep squad, as I said previously. And they'll probably challenge for the top 4. But they're not Man City, are they? They're not. They're not on Arsenal. Bournemouth scored 3. Bournemouth turned it on for 10 minutes. Yes, we collapsed. But Bournemouth turned it on for 10 minutes. They could have scored 6. Structure. Spurs scored 4. They could have scored 6, 7, 8, depending on whatever they wanted that day down at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Again, the structure was all over the place. Aston Villa could have scored probably 5. The structure. And I'd argue Brighton at home 3-0. Yes, there was a red card to Ashley Young, but nevertheless, the warning signs were there throughout the game. Matoma and Minter had the freedom of the park. The structure is all wrong again. And I think that's the biggest worry for me right now. And like I've said previously to you, Ben, I know you're a big advocate of Sean Dyche because of the situation we're in.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. We are in a situation, and at the moment, there's a picture at Everton. There's a picture. The bigger picture is we need a takeover to go through. We need a roadmap. We need to see where we're going as a football club. And that's absolutely fine. The issue is Sean Dyche at the moment, he's not earning his corn. He's not earning his wage. And like I've always said, when you hire a manager like Sean Dyche, you accept that the football is not going to be particularly attractive and it's not going to be free-flowing and you're not going to be on the edge of your seat. But the caveat to that is you are going to be very, very solid defensively, very solid and hard to beat. And at the moment, Everton are not hard to beat. They're a soft touch. They're very easy to beat. I think if you asked most Aston Villa fans, not only Aston Villa fans, I think if you asked most Everton fans in the away end on Saturday, when it went 2-0 Everton, are you confident? I don't think many would have been confident because I wasn't confident. I wasn't confident at all. It wasn't, like I said previously, it wasn't if Aston Villa were going to score. It was just when, because the warning signs were there. So we're obviously going to, Ben, we're obviously going to get into the nitty gritty about Sean Dyche and you know, where do Everton go from here at the moment? You know, 4 straight losses, 13 goals conceded. It doesn't paint a pretty picture. It really, really doesn't. But I do think it's unfair, and I'm seeing a lot of talk from the media, publications, to say, you know, once Jared Branthwaite's back, you know, we expect the structure to be a lot better. I think it's more than that. And again, I'm just going to reiterate, I don't think that's fair on Branthwaite to put that amount of pressure on him. Yes, he's a top-class defender, but he can't compensate for the midfield. So for me, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of work. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the questions in the comments, and we're going to talk about Sean Dyche's future. Where do we see it going? Where do the club want to go right now? How big of a game Leicester is? How big of a game Southampton is in the Cup? You know, do Everton need it just to get some momentum? There's a lot to digest at the moment at Everton Football Club, Ben.
Yeah, there's a lot. Welcome back, Paul. Obviously been away on holiday.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the channel. Where do you sit after all this then? You've been away, obviously, for the Villa game. You came back to, you know, a bit of chaos, to be honest. Where did it sit with you then, that whole game? Let's get your thoughts on that game first then.
It's just really, really frustrating after, obviously, what happened against Bournemouth, and you can say that's a one-off, a collapse. Everyone's had kind of went in terms of the manager with the substitutions, the players, decision-making, and everything just didn't go our way in the last 10, 15 minutes of the game. But Aston Villa, it can't happen again. It definitely can't happen again the following game. I agree with Bobble. The structure, the side right now isn't it? It's not working. Idrissa Gueye and Tim Burnham, the 2 very good players, different stages of their career. Obviously, Idrissa is getting towards the latter part of his career. He'll be close to retiring soon. He's 35, 36, and Tim Burnham, he's just coming onto the scene. He hasn't really played that much Premier League football, especially starting in the amount of minutes that he's had to play right now. But none of them are a natural 6, and people may not be big fans of him, and I think I was pretty vocal on the page that the way we played didn't suit him, and it was a very good sale, but we didn't really replace Amadou Onana. And listen, he didn't have the best of games the weekend. Obviously, Dwight McNeil bullied him for our first goal. He absolutely bullied him. but he gave you that protection. He come for the ball from the centre half. So he wouldn't be afraid of carrying the ball, trying to make kind of passes through the lines, trying to get the team forward. And he wasn't the most consistent player in the world, and he didn't pull up that many threes at Everton. His performances weren't always great, and also when the going really got tough on both seasons he was here, Sean Dyche did not fancy him in that. He had him on the bench in both of the run-ins. The Bournemouth game he didn't start, and obviously the run-in last season, that week in April when we got them 3 wins, he didn't start them games. I think after Chelsea away, that 6-0, I don't think he started at all, actually.
No, he didn't, no.
But we never replaced him. And you can say Tim Aronobunan will be a very, very good player, which I agree with. He's going to be very good. But right now he needs some protection in the midfield. I think James Garner should have started, in my opinion. I know he ended up going full back because we didn't have no one else with Mikalenko to go there. But to start, you could have maybe had James Garner in midfield. And I think the first goal, part of it comes from Garner being a midfielder, and he kind of tucks in a bit too much. Doesn't get out quick enough to stop the cross. Can you say maybe the keeper can try and get it? It's one of them, I think, if he goes for it, I don't think he makes it because, again, it's just physical attributes. And Michael Keane's got to flick it away. In terms of Branthwaite coming back, does it change all? No. But I generally think it makes us a lot better.
Makes Tarkowski better.
Makes everyone better. Yeah. Makes Mikalenko better. Makes the midfielders better. It's just the cool, the calmness, the composure he's got. And it allows us to defend higher up the pitch too because of his recovery pace. I think we can't really push up the pitch. We can't really press teams now because you hit a long ball in behind Everton. Let's say against Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins, he's pretty quick. But no one's going to... Michael Keane and Tarkowski obviously won't really be able to keep up with him, whereas Jared Branthwaite, with his recovery pace, he allows you to push up the pitch 10, 15, even 20 yards at times. He allows you to kind of try and camp on opposition's half. Not saying that would have happened away at Villa, because we probably would have still set up with a bit of a lower block, kind of let them come at us and try and hit them on the break. But yeah, the amount of space that Luca Dean was finding himself in from obviously the highlights that I've watched back in the game, tried to rewatch a bit of it, he was finding himself in way too much space. I think the second goal, it's a poor clearance from Jack Harrison. It's really poor. You've got to make that clearance.
If he leaves it, Dean's offside, isn't he?
Yeah, if he leaves it, he probably is offside, but you've got to make that clearance. Then the third is just an absolute worldie. And that's just that I would agree with Dyche. That's fine margins. That third goal is a worldie. And then you can talk about the two chances that Dominic missed. First one looked to be offside, obviously not being not really seeing it back. The second one, bit unlucky, probably got to score though. I think if you find yourself 1v1 against the keeper, you've got to score really. Yeah. And overall, apart from that, he had a really decent game. His overall play was very good. Obviously, got himself again on the score sheet, which was good. But something's got to change. The manager has now got to make big decisions. He's got to change the midfield too. And he's got to bring in someone as centre-half. I'm not saying Michael Keane's at fault for every goal either, but for me, it just causes panic round the team. And something's got to change. Even if you think Michael Keane's playing better than Tarkowski and you want to bring O'Brien in for Keane, I wouldn't agree with it, but you've got to make a change. You can't continue using the same tactics, the same players, the same setups, and expect it to change. You need to make decisions and you need changes. And until then, it'll just be the same spiral.
Look, I try and fight Sean Dyche's corner, and I said on social media last night that it might not. Michael Keane probably, I think James Tarkowski's probably been the worst centre-half, but when Michael Keane plays for Everton Football Club, we concede a goal under Sean Dyche every 36 minutes. Now, that's 2 a game. So Everton, with Michael Keane in the side, start a game 2-0 down. And that is just facts. That is just, when he plays, we concede every 36 minutes, which simply, the proof's in the pudding. You've got to take him out the equation. He creates panic. Jordan Pickford seems to play not as good when he's there. James Tarkowski, his confidence is on the floor. We've had Alan Stubbs here over on the channel, on the Patreon channel, and he talks about when you're playing alongside someone. He made reference to Joseph Yobo at the time. He said that he was unsure what the hell Yobo was going to do, so he's second guessing what he's going to do, and you can see that, can't you? You know, you don't know if Keane's going to win the header, you don't know if he's going to push up. Morgan Rogers was tucking in. I actually quite liked how Emery set up against Everton. I think obviously Jacob Ramsey and John McGinn were kind of tucking in, and at times it felt like 4-on-2 against Tim and Adjusa Garnegay in the middle. That then allowed Luca Dean and the young right back that they played to have all the freedom of the space, because Harrison and Ndiaye was trying to play very narrow, and Everton naturally play narrow fullbacks under Sean Dyche anyway, and that's probably been one of the criticisms I've had of Sean Dyche. You know, the fullback we tuck in very much, and we kind of go to a back six. But if there's no wingers who aren't hugging the touchline, you're finding our wingers are tucking in, and Luca Dean had the freedom of Birmingham City the whole of that game, and the cross. You know, Onana finds Luca Dean, finds Ollie Watkins. Yes, Michael Keane has to win that header. He simply has to. You've got to find a structure. Now, given the circumstances, given the basket case for football club, given the ownership issues, there's all this talk of credit in the bank. That's fine. I sit here and fight Sean Dyche's corner. But if he continues to play Michael Keane, then unfortunately you're going to end up without a job, because it cannot go on. Timo Ogbunam, been a bright spark, been excellent. He's a young kid. He's inexperienced. When he has the ball, he goes past players. I love that side to him. He can beat a man. He can drive with the ball. When we haven't got the ball, or when we're in any sort of transition, Everton find themselves in panic modes. It's almost as if you're a deer or a rabbit in headlights. They freeze. No one knows whether they go. Tim and Garner-Gay haven't got that understanding yet of who sits, who goes, and there's pockets of space everywhere. And this hasn't just been present into the Aston Villa game. Tottenham game was a complete car crash. Brighton was a car crash. And Bournemouth for 87 minutes was fine. But then legs come into play, the substitutions come into play, and we just completely imploded. He has to find a way to change it. It probably, for me, you look back back to April, our last good run of form, the 3 victories. We had Garner-Gay and James Garner in central midfield. I think it was either Ashley Young or Seamus Coleman at right back, Mikalenko at left back, Branthwaite, Tarkovsky. Go back to basics. Now, Dwight McNeil has probably been a really good bright spark for me this year. You look at his statistics offensively, creating, I think it's the second most chances. Yes, he takes our corners. Yes, he takes our set pieces. But I do still feel like he was too far away from our midfield too. Whereas Decore, who probably hasn't, ripped up any roots here, he hasn't been the best player at all, probably since January, to be honest. But he gives you a bit more of those legs and a bit more deeper. But then you find yourselves in a catch-22 situation. As the Bobble likes to say, rock in a hard place. Do you then go towards the offensive side or the defensive sides? For me, Everton have got to go back to basics now. We've conceded 13 goals in 4 games. Go back to basics and stop conceding chances. Stop conceding goals. The football's not going to be nice. It's not going to be offensive, free-flowing football. Shut up shop. And then try and get a goal and go back to basics. I was quite surprised at Sean Dyche at the weekend. I thought that we may resort to more of a natural 4-5-1 at half-time. He could have even changed it to a back 5 at half-time, to be honest, and just gone, right then, 5-4-1, come and break us down, and we're going to sit and invite pressure. People may argue against it, but let's get it right. Aston Villa scored from 2 individual errors, Keane and Jack Harrison, and as Paul quite rightly said, an absolute worldie. Pickford made a fantastic save in the second half. I think it was Ramsey had a chance. It was a great save, and it fell to Ramsey and he didn't manage to put a shot away. But apart from that, we didn't really get ripped apart.
Watkins had one where he slid and just missed it by studs. It looked like he nearly got on the end of a cross across the 6-yard box where he slid in and nearly missed that. They didn't rip us apart in the respect of they weren't creating bags of chances. But they were probing, weren't they? And if I'm honest, I think a lot of Aston Villa supporters, and I spoke to a couple of their journalists, they didn't think they played that well. They thought Aston Villa were quite sluggish and were quite poor. And I think that's probably a fair assessment by Aston Villa's standards. But the warning signs were there, and I think this is my issue. I absolutely understand that Sean Dyche has a way of playing. I totally understand that. But I am a big advocate that during a game, it's like a game of chess, isn't it? And Unai Emery is a technician. Now, he had clearly worked on the system to get Luca Dean into the game because Everton defend like a V. Luca Dean can pretty much get down the byline unapproached and get balls into the box and get ball. And that's what the pattern of play was in the first half. That's all it was. Now, we did absolutely nothing to nullify that. And that's where I then start to have a bit of a bugbear with it, because I think the better managers, they understand the situation and they go, right, okay, I've set us up in a certain way because this is my style. However, they've countered it. And at the moment, they were getting a lot of joy with Luca Dean down the left-hand side. Oh, it was a lot of joy. He had the freedom of Birmingham in reality.
I thought Harrison was very poor, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think
poor.
it was one of his better games, I have to agree. But you then have to make provisions and think, right, this is hurting us too much. And that's how their first goal came. Yes, James Garner, schoolboy, you try and stop the cross, but you can't stop every cross. You physically can't. Sometimes there will be crosses into your box. And Michael Keane has to do better as a centre-half. You have to get your body in there. You have to pin your striker. You have to make life very, very difficult for him to stop him heading it home. But how did it start? We'd had enough warning signs from the diagonal ball over to Luca Dean. He could run 10, 15 yards and then whip it in the box pretty much unapproached. And we did nothing to stop that or to nullify that area of concern. And again, this is what I'm trying to say. Even when Everton went 2-0 up, the warning signs were all over the pitch. And Yuri Tielemans, as I previously said, the 36 entries into your box away from home, I find it absolutely ludicrous that we're allowing a Belgian international to have 36 entries into your penalty box. I find it criminal, absolutely criminal. And again, that goes back to the structure. Ben's right. Timiro Abunam has started the season quite well. He got found out at Villa Park, and that's absolutely fine. He's a young lad. He's going to get found out at games. The issue is The issue I have is Dyche persisted with Idrissa Gana Gay and Timiro Abunam, when in my opinion he had James Garner on the bench, who is fit and available, who is more suited to playing in that deeper role than those two.
Probably right, yeah.
I think he should have been the screen there. And it's not James Garner's natural position. If you look at it when he played for Nottingham Forest, he played a little bit further forward. And if you look at when we beat Aston Villa last year in the Cup, James Garner played a little bit further forward, got a goal, and he was instrumental in Everton's winning the Cup that night. But defensively, James Garner is underrated. He's actually structurally quite a sound professional in terms of he's got a good footballing IQ, he's got a good brain on him. And he's also, and the stats back it up, and the data backs it up, he is the best footballer out of Iro Abunam, Idrissa Gana Gueye, Doucouré and James Garner in terms of keeping the ball, keeping possession, least amount of turnovers and so on. And I think when you are in a rut, and which is what we are, we're in a rut, there's no doubt, no hiding from that, you need to have sometimes a bit of calmness when you do get on the ball and off the ball. And I think Garner can bring you that a little bit. Yes, we'd like to see more from James Garner, but he's if we've got one of our central midfielders who have got the ball and they're in between the halfway line and the 18-yard box, I don't want Idrissa Gana Gueye to have it. I'm not a huge fan of Ro Bunham having it because it's not really his role. Doucouré, absolutely not. Mangala, we haven't seen enough from him in a blue shirt, which is fair assessment. And then you have James Garner. James Garner's the best out of that pack there to keep it ticking, to calm things down. And that's all it needed at times. It just needed a calm head, just to slow the game down a little bit and say, you know what? We're now going to have the ball for a minute and we're just going to knock it around and take the sting out of it, buy a foul, win a throw-in, go back to Tarkowski, back to Keane, give it back to Garner, go back to Pickford. Just slow it down. And if they want to press high, okay, we then go to Calvert-Lewin. We didn't do any of that. It was just ping-pong in our own half. And it was almost rabbit in headlights. And then we go back to the structure. Like I said, I think there's a lot of food for thought. I really, really do. And obviously at the moment, there's a lot of supporters who would like to see the manager removed and his staff removed. Yeah. And again, that is another debate entirely, which I'm sure we're going to get stuck into. Yeah,
definitely. And like I said, everyone's got different views of opinions. Everyone's got different footballing views. And every single pair, no one's right, no one's wrong. You know, we have the privilege to come on and talk to you guys and girls about Everton and, you know, the setup here, but it doesn't mean that I'm right or Paul's right or, you know, I know you're right 99% of the time, Bobble, but, you know, just opinions and that's how it is. But on to that, Paul, he does, let's get it right, he does find himself under pressure. I think, you know, the season it's not going to be defined at Aston Villa. Getting beat at Aston Villa is not going to define our season. I think, you know, let's look at the bigger picture. Aston Villa's squad is far superior to Everton. Yeah. Aston Villa's bench would probably 90% of them would start for Everton Football Club in today's game. Let's get that right. But, you know, the Bournemouth game was an implosion, you know, conceding 13 goals. It's a big red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the season may not be defined at Villa, but the manner of the defeats does define the season, does define the character of the sides, does define the confidence and how you go from there. If we thought that the confidence would have been shot on from them players after that Bournemouth final whistle, then for it to happen again.
Do you think them 2 defeats were the same? Because I don't.
Well, I mean, what I mean by that is you go 2-0 up and you lose the game. That's what I mean. I think the problem with Dyche is you won't adapt. You'll have your game plan and that'll be your game plan. Whereas as you said, Luca Dean had the freedom of, never mind Birmingham, the whole Midlands on Saturday. You need to make an adjustment to stop that, to stop him getting in that amount of space. And out of every team in the league, Everton know how good of a crosser Luca Dean is.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's not like he's a new player in the Premier League. We've had him here for a bit of time. We know how good his delivery into the boxes. And we done nothing to address that. I think that's just, it's just schoolboy. It's just poor, really. As you say, the season won't be defined because we lost to Villa, but 4 losses on the trot in the Premier League. Obviously, we got that win against Doncaster, but that's just the Carabao Cup when you play a League Two side. It was a bit of more like a pre-season game than first round, aren't he? But he's under massive pressure, and in my opinion, anywhere else, he would have been gone by now. Let's be honest. Since December, five wins in the league, 3 of them came in a week. It's not good enough. And there's too many times in this calendar year where we've been battered. Tottenham, that's Villa in terms of possession and chances and stuff they had. Brighton battered us. When we went down to Bournemouth last season, I know it was 2-1 later on, but they were the better side by
Missing
far.
the Chelsea game.
Oh, don't get me wrong, I was getting onto that one now. Chelsea, obviously City, although it is City, I get that. Brighton, they were peppering our box again away in the league when we conceded late on. So not even in terms of results, in terms of performances, we've been poor this whole calendar year. Apart from that 1 week in April where obviously we beat Liverpool and we beat Burnley and Forest and then the Sheffield United game. Apart from that, we've been poor overall the calendar year. And it's been, I think, since the Corey got injured against Burnley. The 16th of December.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Since then, we've been poor. He hasn't adapted to not having a fit, available and firing Abdoulaye Doucouré. And let's be honest, Doucouré on the ball is not the best. He's not the best player we've got. He's a workhorse. He'll work hard. He'll go up and down the pitch for you, and he'll put that hard work in that Sean Dyche likes. But he's not the best on the ball. And it happened the season before when Doucouré got sent off against Tottenham. We then lost 3 or 4 games on the bounce. I remember we went to Old Trafford straight away. We got battered again. Godfrey, I think he was at left back. He got hooked off at half time.
Yeah, even Anthony looked good.
He didn't adapt without Doucouré. And I think that's been Sean Dyche's probably main issue at Everton. He hasn't been able to adapt to Doucouré not being 100% firing in terms of his performances in the 10 row because he's got nobody to link up with Calvert-Lewin. He's got nobody to kind of to drop into the midfield and make it a 3 and kind of try and overrun and bully sides. And that's what will cost him his job, not being able to adapt to that. His in-game management has always been questionable. That's to put it nicely. Again, that Bournemouth in-game management for me is one of the worst I've seen at Everton in a long, long time. It's up there with when we were 2-0 up against West Ham and obviously Nias came on that day. But yeah, he's got to really change that. As I say, I think in any other club that had a stable structure and kind of ownership issues resolved, I think he probably would have been gone by now. I think he would have been gone last year before it got to April.
Do you think we overachieved last year as a whole? 48 points?
I don't think we overachieved.
With the players, what we had?
I generally don't think... I think the squad is short and thin, but I don't think it's as bad as it makes out.
The squad or first 11?
The squad in overall. I think this season's squad is better than last season, although I think midfield were probably a bit shorter. I think going forward we're better. I think NDI's obviously been an upgrade on Danjuma just in terms of minutes and kind of his work rate is a lot of Sean Dyche. Lindstrom we haven't seen enough of, but you can probably argue he's more of a seasoned professional instead of Lewis Dobbin. Obviously Armando Bro just came in now. We're still yet to see him. got a centre half, and can you argue maybe Godfrey gave us a bit more kind of versatility, maybe, but
He had to go.
yeah, he had to go
Godfrey
due
and
to
Dobbin had to go just for simple PSR reasons.
PSR reasons, and Godfrey also contract situation. He wanted to leave. It was an easy one to make. I think the squad overall may be a bit better, but I don't think it's as bad as where it is right now. I don't think it was as bad as where it was for large parts of last season. I think the Premier League last season was poor, was really, really poor. And I think our squad was in that kind of bottom half of the table. And it ended up finishing about where it should have. Probably would have been a bit better, obviously, without the point deduction. And Sean Dyche has done really well at Everton so far since he's came in. He's had to deal with a lot of stuff, and he's done well. But this calendar year, well, since December 16th, he's been poor, and he's been really, really poor. And as I say, no manager would have survived that if Machiri was still kind of active. I think Machiri would have easily kind of pulled the trigger. He's done it before, but something has got to change quickly, because if not, he will find himself out of a job. And I said this last week, I think it was. Sean Dyche's biggest issue right now is David Moyes is free, he's available, and he's doing the rounds.
He's going on podcasts.
Yeah, that's Sean Dyche's biggest worry right now. David Moyes is available, and even if you don't agree with getting Moyes back, from the club's point of view, it will make sense if Sean Dyche was to leave.
Before you come in, Ben, just to touch on what Paul's been saying there, Everton find themselves in a situation that I don't think any club would like to find themselves in, especially at Premier League level. We find ourselves in a situation, and this isn't just, hearsay, this is the facts, okay? Everton find themselves in a situation where we have the current manager and his staff, their contracts come to an end at the end of the season. And we also have our sporting director, Kevin Thirlwell. His contract comes to an end at the end of the season. Whilst we have an absent owner, and we have a potential takeover happening, maybe not happening. John Textor's obviously gone to the media. We'll have to see with John Textor. There's a lot still to be done to get that one over the line. This is the position that we now find ourselves in. If you sack Sean Dyche, I don't personally think Sean Dyche could have many complaints, okay? I don't think many managers can have complaints when they've only won 5 games since December the 16th. That's the fact. That's the picture there, okay? Not many managers could defend that. They'd have to say, I probably need more results, okay? I need more wins. The caveat is, if you sack Sean Dyche, okay, you're going to have to pay a considerable sum for him and his staff, okay? As I've spoke about previously, you have to pay a considerable sum for him and his staff, and it's a large sum to get rid, okay? You want to pay it? We pay it. Say Farhad wants to pay it, or Textor advises to pay it. They pay it. You then have another situation. You've then got a sporting director that doesn't know if he's going to be here come the end of the season. He also doesn't know what direction the club wants to go in terms of, it's all very well us sitting here and saying, or Paul sitting here, and everyone's got a different opinion. But this is just the fact. Go and get David Moyes. Okay? It makes sense. I can see the logic. Okay? He's available, been here before, knows what it's all about. He'd probably get us some instant results. You'd like to think of an instant impact. Is he willing to take it for 7 months? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. If he's not willing to take it for 7 months, and he wants it for, no, I want a 2-year contract, we're not in a position to give him a 2-year contract. Simply because you give him a 2-year contract, he keeps us up, fantastic. Obviously we need to stay up for obvious reasons. We then get to the end of the season, the takeover's now been completed and it's done, whoever it may be, let's just say it's Textor, hypothetically, for obvious reasons again. He may want to take the club in a completely different direction. He may want a progressive manager. He may want a different style of football. Well, then you have to sack David Moyes again, pay him a considerable sum. You've got to make a decision on Kevin Thirlwell. Are you keeping him or are you not keeping him? Can you see where I'm going here? There's a big picture at Everton. There's a big picture that is evolving here, and it's a tough picture to view, trust me. It's difficult. But there is a cut-off point for any manager at a Premier League football club. There has to be a cut-off point where you think, you know what, enough's enough. The ideal situation at the start of the season, this is the fact, the ideal situation was that we don't flirt with relegation. Sean Dyche makes us reasonably steady and stable. And we get to the end of the season, we've got a new owner, we're going into the new ground, and we can assess the situation and make a logical decision. Do we want to continue with Sean Dyche or go down a different pathway? I think as it stands right now, I think the majority of the fan base would say if that was the case, we'd like to address it at the end of the season in terms of we'll move him on at the end of the season because it's then going to be free to remove him and his team. Same for Kevin Thorwell, depending on if you want to keep him or not, it'd be free to remove him or keep him, again, depending. And then we can go hit Bramley Moore with a new regime, a new pathway, a new roadmap. This is the problem. We didn't envisage being in this position so early on into the season. That's the problem we have.
Yeah.
The plan was get to the end of the season, we'll then assess the situation. There'll be no contracts offered. We'll wait for a new owner to come in and see what his vision is or what their vision is and what their roadmap is. We don't have that. So you sack Sean Dyche. Say he loses at Leicester. Again, there has to be a cut-off point with any manager. I don't know where the cut-off point is, and I'm going to be honest, they don't know where the cut-off point is. Okay, it's just at the moment, let's hope he gets a result. Okay? If he loses at Leicester, and you think, right, I'll give him one more, and it's Crystal Palace, and you lose that, it's then... Some people may now think he's got to go now. I think if you even allow it to go to that far, it's indefensible. You're done. You're finished. You've got to pull the cord. But where'd you go? Where's the roadmap? If Moyes doesn't want it, and again, it's the obvious decision. It is. But if he doesn't want it for the 7-8 months and he wants a 3-year deal, which he's perfectly entitled to, we're not in a position to offer a manager a 3-year deal. We're not. Because, again, I'm reiterating myself, we don't know which way the club is going to go in terms of the direction because we don't have an owner, really, and we don't have a roadmap. When the new owner comes in, say it's John Textor, he'll have a 5-year plan. This is where we are now. This is where I want to be. I need this, this, and this done. And I need these personnel put into the football club to get us there over the next 5 years. He may want a new sporting director, new recruitment team, a new manager, backroom staff. He might want to bring 10 people, 11 people slowly into the football club. That would be perfect at the end of the season. Perfect. Making a change now was not, and it was not in the plan. Trust me, it was never in the plan. It was make us steady, get us to Bramley Moore, a Premier League club. The issue is, at the moment, with all due respect to the gaffer, he's stinking the gaff out. He's absolutely stinking the gaff out. And he's killing himself. And his demeanour has changed. He's never been particularly great in press conferences. He's old school. He's a Sam Allardyce. You know, they're an old school type of manager.
He's David Moyes.
Yeah, he's old school, but he's not handling himself well to the media. The football's not great to watch, and obviously we're getting beat every week. He needs to, if he's going to be kept on, I hope that kind of makes sense in what I'm trying to say.
No, it does.
That's the state of play at Everton. That is the state of play. They want him to get a result to calm it down.
I think the fans,
but again,
want that too.
But there's got to be a cut-off point. Now, where is the cut-off point for you guys? I'll put it to you guys because, again, this is just the fact. This is now an opinion. Where is the cut-off point for you? Where would the cut-off point be if it continues, Ben?
Look, and for all them reasons you've just said, it's probably why I'm such a big advocate to just sticking with it. The time for me to reset is next summer. You've hopefully got a new owner, get that absolute debacle out the way. There's a roadmap, there's a plan, and you go and get a manager for 5 or 6 years. Now, David Moyes, because he's out there, he's flirting on podcasts, he is the ideal stopgap. He is, you stop the rot, try and get a few wins. But again, no manager in this world will come to Everton and take an 9-month contract. And David Moyes knows this. He will be looking for a 2.5-year deal because that's just modern day football. When do you ever see an interim manager appointed for like 6-7 months? It's very rare. It does happen occasionally, but it's very rare.
When's the cut-off point for you?
Cut-off point for me. We've now got Leicester, Newcastle, Palace. So Leicester, Palace, Newcastle. They're our next 3.
And Southampton tomorrow.
Southampton tomorrow. Yeah. And I hate saying it. I absolutely despise saying it. But the more important game is now Leicester on Saturday for me. I think them next 3 for me. That's just my opinion. If you fail to win in the next 3, then it starts to get a bit tricky. The next 10, by the way, are favourable. Now, I'm not saying we should just throw away games and go, we deserve to get beat by Brighton, deserve to get beat by Tottenham and Villa away. All three are better than us right now. Let's call a spade a spade. They are. The Bournemouth at home's a disaster. That's the one that stands out for me. That was an absolute disaster. 87 minutes, brilliant. 5 minutes of absolute chaos, and we end up with 0 points. The next 3 games are massive. I expect the arrival of Jared Branthwaite to come back is going to be monumental. He assures everyone. He calms Pickford down. He calms Tarkowski down. He makes Mikalenko better. He actually makes Garner Gay in that better because he steps up to the gap which is left by Idrissa Garner Gay. The problem is, if Jared Branthwaite comes back, starts, and we continue to ship goals, that's when you start to go, oh, you've kind of you've lent on this Jared Branthwaite injury, Sean. You've said, the best player at the club, because he is the best player at the club, let's get it right, has been injured. We've had to fork in Michael Keane. If Branthwaite comes back into the side and we continue to ship chances, the midfield structure's all over the place, and we continue to ship goals, yes, we've got no board. Yes, we've got a head of stadium as the current CEO, Evan. Farhad Moshiri, God knows where the hell he is. Probably in some sort of bloody court case with Usmanov somewhere. Don't know where he is. But, as you said, Bobble, and I'll bring Paul into this because it's a great point, and it's probably why I fight his corner so much. I just want stability, get to the end of the season, then reassess. And I do think Sean Dyche will keep us safe. I genuinely do believe we'll be absolutely fine. It's going to be a tough road. I really, really do. He's done it before. He's been here before. I think we overachieved last year. I really, really do. I know, Paul, you had your opinion. I think the first 11 are competitive. 1 or 2 injuries, and Everton's squad is completely, it's poor. We haven't replaced the fullbacks in about 5 or 6 years. The midfield's now weaker. We're putting in an Ashley Young who's 39 years of age at right back to try and just bit of wall filler over a hole in the wall. But until this club resets from the top up, we'll continue with this cycle. And you're also leaning on the fact that Farhad Moshiri has then got to go and find a replacement. Now, head over heart here, Farhad Moshiri and managers, we've had 9 in 8 years. So why would we trust this absolute clown of an owner to find the right manager right now? He wanted Pereira, he wanted Lampard, he wanted Bielsa. He's actually turned down David Moyes 3 times, by the way, since he's been the owner of Everton Football Club. Moyes thought he had it in 2019, when it was Rangnick and someone else, Silver, I think it was. Then when Carlo come back, Moyes thought he had the job again. So if you're David Moyes, you could give it the whole 2 fingers, give it the bird to Everton and go, I'm not interested.
So if you're the owner of Everton, today, how long are you giving Sean Dyche?
I think Farhad Moshiri's not going to make a decision.
No. You're the owner of Everton.
3 more games.
You'd give him, including Southampton?
No, 3 league games. So, Leicester away, Palace at home, Newcastle at home. And he probably needs 4 points minimum. I want 6, 4 points minimum. Paul, same question.
When's the cut-off point? If he loses against Southampton and Leicester, then that's the cut-off point for me. It's really just week by week for me. It's not really maybe 3-4 games in advance. It's how you're performing in every game because the pressure's on. And I think you can't afford to be losing. I know Southampton is the cup, but you can't afford to be losing against the likes of Leicester.
Well, it heaps pressure on, doesn't it?
And then it's teams that you're going to be in and around towards the end of the season that you're going to be fighting with. It's really what they always call 6 pointers towards the end of the season. Just can't believe we've got one in the end of September. It's just absolutely crazy. I think after everything that you said, I agree. I think Moyes as a few people have said in the chat, Moyes just took an 8-month contract before at West Ham.
He has, yeah.
I think the difference I will say to obviously people that are tuning in is managers know how desperate Everton are. Yeah. That's why Dyche has got this clause in the contract.
Yeah.
They knew how desperate we were when Frank went. That's why Sam turned down initially 6 months. A 6-month contract down when he got the job, and then he ended up getting. I think he got a bigger contract in the end, and then or a bigger salary. Managers know, same as players, how desperate Everton are when they sack somebody.
Then. Sorry to interject. Moyes. It was a different era for Moyes then when he took that 8-month contract at West Ham. He needed to go out and prove himself to try and get himself back on the wagon, so to speak. So he may well take an 8-month contract. We don't know if he'd take an 8-year contract. 8-month contract. We don't know. But I do think when he took that West Ham contract, I'm not advocating that he would or wouldn't take it, but I do think it was kind of a different time in his career.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think he probably would maybe not take that, but he looks to get some kind of clause or big salary like Dyche's got. I mean, Dyche's already on a decent wage himself, and if he gets sacked, then he gets obviously a further year that he's not even contracted to pay, which is crazy. I think I was actually talking to my dad the other day about it, and he just couldn't believe whoever deals with manager contracts at Everton, and he still brought up the Martinez one from years ago and the big payoff that he received back then.
Yeah.
But
Ronald Koeman's the same.
I really don't know where the cut-off point is. I think, as I say, week by week. This week there's 2 games. We need to win both, really. I think you look at Leicester. You've got Mavididi. I think he's a good player for Tower on the other wing. Jamie Vardy, 37, and he's aging like fine wine this season in the Premier League.
Oh, God, yeah. I know.
But I think Everton have got enough to hurt them. I think I'd expect Dominic to bully Fires. I'm not a big fan of him at all. I think their centre-halves are a bit shaky. Oliver Skipping, Harry Winks in midfield, with Ndidi playing a bit more advanced. Everton have got to fancy their chances against Leicester. And if you don't win there, if you lose there, really, it could be curtains for the manager, I think.
Yeah,
I think because obviously there's another international break coming up. I think it's after Newcastle, is it?
Yeah, after Newcastle, yeah.
Which, to actually back Ben's point up, that would make it a perfect timing if you were then to get a new manager in who's got 2 weeks with the players, kind of try and get any new ideas in, fresh ideas into them. But yeah, in my eyes, it's a week by week thing.
Next topic then, Bob, and I'll bring you in. Where do you stand then? David Moyes is obviously the obvious choice to replace Sean Dyche right now. If he says no, where do you look? Do you think Farmer is capable of finding a manager?
I don't know about Fard Mashiri. I really, really don't know. Do you trust him to pick the right man? Probably not. Bearing in mind, his selections have been a little bit dodgy. His process is not particularly great when he's looking for a new manager. I wouldn't trust it, no. I wouldn't trust him to pick the right man. No, I wouldn't, Ben. And again, it goes back to who wants the job. Again, David Moyes is the obvious candidate because he's obviously out of a job and obviously we all know what he's about. But if that one didn't happen for whatever reason, I don't know who else you go get as a stopgap. Now, would I want
a stopgap?
A Duncan Ferguson, which is the sort of route we've kind of headed down a little bit. I don't think I would, no. I'd rather Sean Dyche stay in charge. I would rather Sean Dyche stay in charge than heading us, a Leighton Baines, a Duncan Ferguson, I don't know, a Wayne Rooney, all hypothetically. I'd rather keep Sean Dyche. But this is what we're going back to what I said previously regarding, because we don't have a roadmap and we don't have an ownership that is currently stable, currently pointing us in the right direction. Who does Kevin Thowell advise us to go get? So you're in Kevin Thowell's seat. Who do you advise him to go get for us? I think that's a really tough job he's got on his hands there.
If I'm someone like that, and I'm thinking with my heart here, I'm looking at Carlos Coburn at West Brom doing a fantastic job. David Ancelotti knows the club. I've been offered here before. But my head then tells me in no world whatsoever would these two managers... I know for a fact that David Ancelotti was asked back in, when Sean Dyche came here and thought it would be career suicide to come back to Everton to manage. Carlos Coburn, I don't think he'll come here. He's probably got a bit better at West Brom. Top of the championship, playing extremely nice football, good squad, things are looking positive. Everton are a basket case for football club. You could come here and think they've had 9 managers. They've absolutely imploded, every single one of them, because they've been so reactionary and they've had the bullet straight away. Yes, they've had a fancy payoff, but their career and their reputation in absolute shatters. But until this football club, and I've said it on the lives, I said it over on the Patreon channel, until Farhad Mashiri sells this football club and gets a competent owner in who can run a club, who point people in footballing positions, who understand business, Everton are going to go nowhere. The proof's in the pudding. And And this is probably why another reason why I do continue to argue. I try and think with my head over my heart when it comes to Everton. Because if David Moyes says no, he interviewed bloody Fabio Cannavaro the other year, Farhad Moshiri, go back over the choices that he's chosen alongside Kevin Farwell. They've got a little nose. Cannavaro, Vita Pereira, Bielsa compared to Dyche. I mean, what type of roadmap is that? You got Bielsa playing 100-mile-an-hour football and then Sean Dyche sitting in.
Well, this is why we go back to my argument in terms of because we don't have a roadmap, it's a very, very difficult thing to even talk about because the plan was never to sack a manager now. That was never the plan. Was to get to the end of the season and have a new takeover in place, have a new board in place, have new owners in place, and then we can see where we want to take the football club in terms of, do you want to keep Sean Dyche because his contract's now up? Do you want to keep Kevin Thirlwell because his contract's up? And obviously, Sean Dyche's backroom staff as well. You can then make a bit more of a logical decision, and you've got a little bit of time, haven't you, to make that decision? You're not in a rush. You've got all summer to kind of come to a decision. But again, that's the big picture. And that's absolutely fine to be in that situation. It's not fine, but we all understand it. But I go back to what I previously said. There has to be a cut-off point where you think this can just no longer continue. And for a lot of Evertonians, that cut-off point has been and gone.
I think it went a while ago.
Yeah. For a lot of Evertonians, it's now there. You now make the call. And again, I don't think Dyche could have many. I don't think many managers can have an argument when they've only won 5 since December the 16th. And now the manner of the results, the way they're coming, I don't think you could have many complaints. I do think, well, if you look at it from the outside looking in, you think, wow, sacking a manager after 4 games, that's pretty rough. But when you're taking the fact that he's only won 5 since December the 16th, you can start thinking, right, okay, there's a bigger picture building here. But it just goes back to my previous caveat. This was never the plan. And I know you have to move on the hop sometimes. You have to make decisions on the hop. There's no one to make that decision. Because there's no one above Kevin Thirlwell. There is Colin Chong and Rich King. There's also very little money at the football club right now. We're in a holding state. And this is why my ideal situation would be to bloody win some games, get to the end of the season, shake hands, we're going down a different route. That would be that would make sense, and it's the most cost-effective decision to make, comfortably. But again, I go back to what I just said. He can't keep losing games because, simply put, Everton can't afford to get relegated. We can't afford to sack him and his team, but we can't afford on an even bigger scale to even consider getting relegated in arguably our biggest ever season before moving into Bramley Moor. We thought last season was big. This is the biggest. Because if we go down now before we step foot into there, goodness gracious me, we're in big trouble, big trouble. So the plan was to keep him, and that's why we've seen media publications, BBC, Sky Sports, over the recent days come out and say, his job's safe, he's got credit in the bank. That was the plan. The plan was get to the end of the season as a Premier League club. The plan wasn't to implode 4 games in. No one could foresee this. I don't think anyone thought we'd lose 4 games.
No.
4 out of 4 and concede 13.
I thought we'd be on 3 points.
Yeah.
I thought we'd beat Bournemouth.
I thought 4.
Yeah. Do you think point v Brighton?
Yes. I'm always of the opinion of when you play the likes of Brighton and West Ham at home, you can't afford to lose those games. You need to try and take a point if possible, at minimal. West Ham, Brighton, those sort of teams, you can't afford just to give up games and then get home. You can't take 0 points against Brighton over the course of a season. You can't take 0 points against West Ham. You can't take 0 points against Fulham, Newcastle. You've got to pick up some points. The mid-table to the 7th, 8th place teams, them sort of areas, you've got to be getting points off them where possible. So I'd have wanted at least 4. Yeah. I'm not sure what you'd have wanted, Paul, but
I think 4.
You think 4?
At least.
Yeah. And I can see the logic behind it.
Probably 6. I think first game of the season, new manager, Brighton, an experience in the Premier League. I think there was a bit of not a feel-good factor, but everyone was a bit more positive. I think you got to target wins in your home games. I always say this, you've got to target wins in your home games, but yeah, between 4 and 6, I think will be expected. And realistically, we should be on 6 right now.
Yeah.
And that's including Villa. We should be on 6. Once you go 2-0 up away from home, you've got to see it out, in my opinion. I mean, unless if you're up against Man City, Arsenal, the best of the best, then you suffer a bit more. But I think the manner of the defeat, it's different to Bournemouth, but it's also really, really poor from from the team and from the manager himself. But yeah, between 4 to 6 points, and yeah, cost wise, we can't afford to sack Dyson, go to another club and get a manager. Like when we offered Watford however many millions for Marco Silva back in the day, we can't do that anymore. Do I trust Farhad to pick the right manager? No, I don't.
What I will say, Ben, to be fair, and you know, this has all been a bit of a Dyche bashing, hasn't it, really? What I will say is, he has got a rough hand at Everton. He's got a rough hand. We targeted players. Jaden Philogene couldn't get it over the line. Willie Nonto couldn't get it over the line. Yankuba Minta was a little bit further away than the others, but we had no chance in reality just due to the finances involved. We have targeted players that we wanted. We wanted wingers. We wanted a right winger specifically, unable to get one. We wanted a fullback, unable to get one because we don't have the financial power. Everton, the recruitment process has been very good.
So on that,
very good.
So why did we sign Jake O'Brien for £18 million, Bowl?
We signed Jake O'Brien because it's a low down payment, mate. So this makes complete sense. So when people say to me, and you know, me and you have this conversation, Ben, off air quite often. People say, why have we signed Jake O'Brien for £17 million, but we didn't go get a winger? You've got to look at the finer details. Jake O'Brien, that transfer deal presented itself where it was someone that we tracked for a considerable amount of time, and it was such a low down payment, it made financial sense. Now, people may say, well, that's £17 million for Jake O'Brien. I wanted that £17 million to go to Jaden Philogene. But you've got to look at the details of each transfer. Each transfer is different. The Jaden Philogene transfer, they wanted around £9 to £10 million down payment. But Everton can't afford that. We didn't have £9 to £10 million as a down payment. Everton had around £9 million in down payments that we really wanted to put down. We were hoping to get 3 players with that £9 million. £3 million down on Jake O'Brien, £3 million on player X, £3 million on player Y. That brings in you 3. Yes, and then you stage the other payments. Whereas if you're spending £9 million on Jaden Philogene, you're only getting 1 player in. So it's a game of chess, really. And that's when it then becomes, it's not as easy as just thinking, well, why have we signed a centre-half? Or that's the reason why, because each financial transfer deal has to make sense for us. And ideally, we want low down payments. The Iliman Ndiaye low down payment, minimal. Jake O'Brien, minimal. Will you go as far as Beto? Yes, it hasn't worked for Beto. Low down payment, nothing. Chimiti. Yeah. Because they make financial sense to us. Jack Harrison, free loan. Arnaud Danjuma, incredibly low down payment for the loan. Because we don't have the financial power. We'd scouted Jaden Philogene. We looked at him. We were at the front of the queue. Literally at the front of the queue for him. We just couldn't get it over the line. Not because he didn't want to come here, he wasn't open to coming here. We don't have the finances. So the minute Hull know there's a bidding war going on and there's big down payments coming down and Aston Villa are now showing interest, yeah, we'll have 8, 9, 10 million pound down payment, please. Who fancies it? Everton have to back away. We can't give you that. We can only give you 3 or 2.5 and then we'll stage it over 5 years. You see my point here? You see what I'm trying to get? And that's where I do have sympathy for Sean Dyche.
It bites in the arse eventually.
Yes, it does. That's where I do have sympathy because you can't get the targets that you want. And you can't get the targets that you've tracked. You think you're going to get them. Another club come in and blindside you a little bit. And don't get me wrong, this isn't me excusing the performances. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation at Everton. And when people say the recruitment team are rubbish and they're not doing their job, I always say to you, if they knew the details, they're doing it probably as well as they could do. Everton, over the last 4 or 5 years, we thought we had Gibbs White done, got blindsided. Mohamed Kudus, blindsided. Philogene, couldn't get it over the line, financial. Livramento, couldn't get it done, went to Newcastle. Luis Diaz, couldn't get it done. Willie Nonto, I didn't have to say him.
Yeah.
Don't have the down payment on him. There's so many that they've recruited, and you look at it and you go, that's brilliant recruitment. Like, we really like him. He fits the profile. Exactly what we need. We're at the front of the queue. Another club comes swooping in. They outbid us. Everton can't match. We have to back away and move away and walk away. That was why we didn't sign Brozier early doors. We were tracking Brozier. We were tracking Brozier all summer. Yeah. I said it over on the Gold Forum on the Patreon. Everton's #1 target for a striker was Armando Brozier right at the start of the summer. We couldn't afford a deal for him. We didn't have the down payment. We had to wait until Chelsea got desperate and then were open to just taking a deal on him, just to get him out rather than him sitting in the reserves for the rest of the season. So that's where I do have a little bit of sympathy for Sean Dyche and Kevin Thowell and his team. That's where I do have sympathy. Again, it's a different subject to the performances on the pitch because Dyche has still got to do the basics and keep us above relegation. But you get my point. You get what I'm trying to say. This is where I do have sympathy with the people at Everton Football Club. They're in a really, really tough spot at the moment.
Yeah, they absolutely are, aren't they? What's your views on it, Paul, in regards to the recruitment?
50-50. Really, I think the Philogene one especially, I think even if Everton had managed to agree a deal with Hull and Camden to play, I think Aston Villa would have came in regardless. I think the way that they had that first refusal clause with then, I think, was it 30% selling clause that obviously then got took off of the transfer fee.
Yeah.
I think Philogene, looking back now with a bit of context, was never in anyone else's hands apart from Aston Villa. I think that would have never happened. Nonto could never afford the down payment. Minte, I think that's one that the club would be kicking themselves. I think from what I feel, they never really pushed that deal with Dominic going the other way and kind of that PSR swap deal. And in my eyes, that's the one that really, really, really got away. I think Tom's made a good point there in the chat about why are Everton then chasing markets that are really high down payments, the likes of Hull, Leeds, Premier League clubs with obviously Brozier at the start, when you always know that the likes of the French clubs, the Italian clubs, Portuguese clubs, the Spanish to an extent, they don't mind doing these kind of deals to get players out, and they don't mind with deals over instalments because the talent is out there in the continent in Europe. I think they saw it with Nuama towards deadline day that would have really been kind of a real big text of favour. I think there is targets all over the continent, so to me it's baffling how they keep targeting players within these clubs that have got such high down payments within the English Football League, because we all know how much money there is in the English game. Why don't you maybe base your scouting around Europe due to the financial circumstances, which I think we have done a bit more this summer?
Yeah, we have.
Because obviously we got Ndiaye
Jacob
from
O'Brien,
Marseille, O'Brien from Lyon, Lindstrom from Napoli. So we have gone Mangala from Lyon. So we have gone a bit more to Europe, but the main targets have still been within the English leagues. So I actually really do agree with Tom in terms of why aren't we just targeting that because of the time being, and if an opportunity like a Jack Harrison presents itself where you can get a loan over the line, a free loan from an English club, or Brozier towards the end of the window, then that's what I'm a bit 50-50 on the players. The talent ID recruitment at Everton is really good. I think the recruitment team identify really good players, but for one reason or another, they can't get them over the line.
I can kind of answer the question, and the answer to the question is, rightly or wrongly, they feel that getting players in that they know a bit more about, given how little finances we have, is less of a gamble. So if they sign a player from St Etienne and they only have to put £2.5 million down, he may need a year to settle. Whereas if they signed a Willy Gnonto, a Yankuba Minta, a Jaden Philogene, who are already in England, already playing in the country, won't need as much time and will hit the ground running. The issue is, and it goes back to what I've been saying previously, because we don't have a roadmap and you don't have a plan, Everton can't plan for 3 years' time. We can't sign a player at the moment. You can, of course, to an extent, if it's such a low down payment where it's like 100 grand. But if you're looking at a few £1 million, we can't sign a player and then think to ourselves, we're going to sign him, loan him back out, and we're going to develop him for 3 years. We don't have a roadmap. Our roadmap at the moment is survival week to week, month to month, season on season, just survive until we get a new ownership, and then we can put a project in place, and this is what we're going to try and achieve. It's really difficult. And again, there's always pros and cons to every decision they make. There's always if, buts, and maybes. I honestly, I'm not excusing Sean Dyche and the staff for the position we find ourselves in, because I think most half-decent managers would put us in a better position right now. I think that's fair to say. But what I'm saying is the bigger picture, it is a really tough job at Everton at the moment. It's a really, really tough job. I think we're going to have to just wait and see in reality to see it over the next week or two. I think it's on a game-by-game basis now, for me anyway. we're on a game-by-game basis, probably not including Southampton. I think obviously we need to win that for momentum, head to Leicester on the back of a win. Getting a good cup run on, under our belt always helps. It always helps momentum, confidence. Winning obviously breeds confidence. But obviously, as Ben rightly said, I think the Leicester one and the Crystal Palace are two massive, massive games. And again, we go back to the cut-off point, don't we? We've got loads of questions coming in, guys. Stuart Barton has said, Bobble, are these the difficult circumstances Dykes keeps referencing of behind the scenes stuff? Yeah, they're fully aware of the situation, Stuart. Again, it's a really, really tough spot that they find themselves in. Again, we're in a bit of a holding pattern as a football club. As I keep saying previously, we are in a holding pattern. So yeah, it is a tough spot, mate, at the moment. And like I said, the original plan was just to get to the end of the season and then we'll assess the situation with new owners in place. Ben, we play Southampton tomorrow, Tuesday night, Carabao Cup. Let's just have a little bit of touch on that for a moment. Jared Branthwaite's been back training now for just over a week. Nathan Patterson's now back full training as well. What sort of team are you expecting to see against Southampton ahead of Leicester away on Saturday, mate?
Again, it's kind of a rock between a hard place, isn't it? Let's be honest, because ultimately winning games of football breeds confidence now. For me, and I absolutely hate saying it, for me, I want to see Everton win a trophy, but it's imperative that we probably focus on Leicester right now as a more important game. And I hate saying it, but I just think that Leicester game on Saturday is a big game. I'd like to see Michael Keane removed for whoever. I do think it's time to see Jake O'Brien, Tarkowski, potentially. Is it too early for Jared Branthwaite? I'd wrap him in cotton wool for Saturday.
That's up to Dyche.
I'd wrap him in cotton wool for Saturday. Look, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I thought, had a fantastic game on Saturday, but his job is to score goals. He scored one, probably should have scored two if we're going to be very extra critical. But I thought he looked back. It's probably his best game since the Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. I thought he played against Konza, and Pau Torres exceptionally well. He ranked Konza absolutely ragged, to be fair. And as Paul quite rightly said, I think we can get at Leicester's back too. Now, I want to see us win games of football. I think we want to see a bit more of Lindstrom. Maybe, do you put Better on for a bit of a cameo and see how he gets on for 60, 70 minutes. Give Dominic that extra break, because let's get it right. 3 games of football in 7 days is a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
It's 270 minutes of football on the legs. I know these are professionals. It's a lot of minutes. That's why you see managers changing, swapping and changing. But we had this chat, me and Paul, off air before, and he's absolutely right in what he said. Winning games of football then creates that winner mentality. It kind of semi-stops the rut. I thought maybe after Doncaster, Everton may kick on a little bit more. We went 2-0 up against Bournemouth. I thought, great, 2 wins in a week. And we all know how that one played out. So I want to see a strong team. I'm not saying play the kids, not for 1 second. I want to see, the likes of Pickford in goal. Keepers can play 3 games in a week. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see Keane took out the team. I want to see more from Jake. I want to see Jake O'Brien play next to Tarkowski, probably. Ashley Young, if Mikalenko's not fit, there's another question. Does Ashley Young go left back? And you play young Roman Dixon, because that is a game where you're probably not throwing him to the Lions. Bit of a cup game. Bit of freedom. Go and show us and the Goodison faithful what you're made of. In the middle of the park, probably Tin needs a rest. Played a lot of football. He's young. Bit inexperienced, probably played a lot of football, probably didn't consider himself to be a starter week in, week out. I think he probably needs a rest. Put James Garner back on the side, starting immediately. Next up, I'll probably argue Garner Gay. Let's just get that formation going first. And then you look at, do you play Iliman Ndiaye, do you play Lindstrom, do you play Jack Harrison, Beto? They're questions for the manager, and people are going to have different opinions to me. I want to see a strong team, but I don't want to see big risks. I don't want to see the likes of Branthwaite starting just yet, because I feel like, for me, the need is more imperative for Saturday. And you know how much I absolutely hate it, and I bang on about winning trophies, but that game on Saturday is massive, for me.
Elbow 1878 has just made a really good point. He said, I don't understand why he's throwing Dixon to the Lions against Spurs, but we've not then seen him since.
And then he didn't play against Doncaster.
Do you think he should have come on against Villa, Ben?
No, I don't. I think he was right to play James Garner. I really do. But if he would have come on, he's more of a natural right back. He is. However, I've said it before, I've had loads of debates on Twitter. The current England manager saw James Garner as a right back in the under-21s, got team of the tournament in the under-21s when the England under-21s went on to win. Steve Cooper played him at there against Forest. He's played there before for Everton. And I just think Dyche was gone. He's a safe pair of legs. You spoke about him defensively. He's a smooth operator defensively, probably more underrated defensively than he is, that people give him credit for. So I think that was probably the right move. However, we go to, say we're 2-0 up against Aston Villa, and we go on to lose 3-2 and Roman Dixon's come on. That is what I mean by feeding to the Lions. We were playing a much superior Aston Villa team. For goodness sake, they're bringing Ian Maatsen off the bench. Champions League finalist last year. They're bringing off Ross Barkley, and I hate saying it, what he did to us, but he'd start for Everton. So stuff like that. So it's difficult. There's a time and a place, and I genuinely do believe that a time and the place. He should have played against Doncaster. I know Paul made that.
He should have played against Doncaster.
He should have played against Doncaster. These are the games where you play your youth. You bed them in. You let them experience starting for Everton at Goodison Park. I'd have no issues whatsoever if young Roman Dixon gets, he starts tomorrow against Southampton. Show us what he's all about for 60, 70 minutes. Get a proper run out. I have no issues with that whatsoever. But you then can't go against Leicester on Saturday and then go, right, you're starting again. You've got to be careful. These are kids. And one bad move of any sort of youngster can be a disaster.
What you, Paul?
In terms of the team tomorrow, I'd like to see Branthwaite and Patterson for me. I'd like to see Branthwaite with O'Brien, give him 60, 65, build a bit of fitness and then go full on the weekend. I'd like to see Mangala start. I think get him a bit of match fitness in an Everton shirt with James Garner in the middle maybe. And apart from that, I'll go as strong as you can. I'd like to see NDI giving a go in the 10. I think I know McNeil has done okay-ish in the 10, but I just feel like
I agree.
NDI is much more suited to that role. I know Dyche now sees him a bit of as a left kind of midfielder, and because defensively he's a monster. His work rate is splendid. But yeah, apart from that, I'd like to see us pretty strong. Need wins. Wins brings momentum. Wins bring confidence. And I don't think Everton are in a position to throw away any kind of games, even if it is cup games. I think the players should have enough to play 2 games in a week. But yeah, I'd like to see Jared and Pato given a few minutes from the start, build a bit of match fitness, and both of them start the weekend the way at Leicester.
And there we have it, ladies and gents, a live show all wrapped up. We hope you have enjoyed it. It's going to be something that we're going to look at doing a lot more. It has also been recorded as a podcast, so if you have missed it or joined late, it is going to be over on our Patreon channel. Please, please, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Would massively help us here at the channel to grow, do more of this, do more content. So if you do have a second, give us a like, give us a follow. That would be massively appreciated. And if you're not a Patreon member, why don't you give us a go over a Patreon? There's a QR code on your left or right hand side. It's one of them. It's one or the other. The Bobble's doing that in the background. But if you do, I'm not a fan of the Patreon, it is what it is. That's fine. Listen to us on Spotify or other platforms. In the meantime, hopefully 2 wins out of 2 this week. Fingers crossed. We need them. Have a great week and all the very best. Up the Toffees.